is Primus Tracks with Josh, Frankie, and Sawyer.
What a couple of dumb shits. Hello, Primates! You found Primus Tracks. Congratulations. This is a big one, Frankie. Frankie's here.
Hi, Josh.
And
very excited.
Yeah, absolutely. And back by popular demand, the man himself, Tim Sawyer.
Hey guys, it's been a while. What's happening?
There's that voice. There's those dulcet tones that we miss so much. Haven't seen you in a while, buddy.
Well, you finally got somebody interesting on the show, so I figured I'd jump back in.
Well, we should bring in that interesting guy. Boy, oh boy, you have heard his signature saxophone sounds on numerous Les Claypool releases and bands. Just to name a few: Frog Brigade, Fancy Band, Bastard Jazz, other impressive groups such as Garage Trois, Critters Buggin', Dead Kenny G's, McTuff, and the Syncopated Taint Septet. I'm just naming the bands whose CDs I have. I could list the rest, but we should probably actually talk to him. So let's do that. Skerik, welcome to Primus Tracks, man. Kind of a standard reaction to most people that come on here. We'll work through the tears. We really appreciate you being here because you have quite a long history with Les and the guys in Primus throughout the years in different roles, and it's really great to talk to you today.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. And how's it going, man? You're gigging again finally, right?
Yeah, just came back from Jazz Fest in New Orleans, and my first gig there was with Les Claypool, actually. Where the fuck were you, Sawyer?
I was not at Jazz Fest this year. I've only been to Jazz Fest twice. One time with Sheryl Crow and one time with Beck, and we got rained out. Festival got shut down right before Beck went on.
Oh, yeah. That happens a lot at the fairgrounds. We didn't play the fairgrounds this time. We were just...
Well, I was there with big bands, not side stage bands.
Yeah, did you hear how he said big? So experienced. He's so experienced.
Main stage bands, not the tent band. I was there with some main stage stuff. I can't remember the Enormo tent or something.
The old tent bands.
I think I was doing My Morning Jacket, and they didn't do Jazz Fest this year, so we were elsewhere.
Oh, okay.
Because I saw Les in Atlanta. We were in Atlanta right when he played there with Oysterhead.
Oh, okay, cool.
Which they had just done the New Orleans gig for Jazz Fest.
Oh, okay.
Were you there for that, the Oysterhead?
No.
Neither was I.
Yeah.
I think Frankie actually wants to start with a heavy-hitting question from Bonnaroo. Is that right, Frankie?
Yes, it's related to Bonnaroo. So, Skerik, when 5 Gallons of Diesel came out, that Les Claypool DVD, that was the first time I saw the Bonnaroo performance, or some extracts from that performance. And then I was able to find Telahun Ginjit online. And watching those performances, something that immediately stood out for me was the way that you were playing saxophone at that concert, because I think there are musicians who can be, very professional and very accomplished, but if you isolated their instruments, they would sound very similar to other players. And on the other hand, there are musicians which are incredibly idiosyncratic, and you can tell them apart compared to a ton of other musicians. And I think that is your particular case. The way that you play, I have never heard anyone else play the saxophone the way that you do it. When I watched that performance for the first time, Bonnaroo 2002, I kept thinking, what is that guy doing? How does he make the saxophone sound that way? It was really mind-blowing. So my question after this background is, how did you become such an idiosyncratic saxophone player? And how do you manage to make the instrument sound so unique when it's in your hands?
So is he calling me an idiot?
I think so. He says some weird stuff. You got to watch out for this guy.
So yeah, as Les would say, it's more like idiot-syncrotic. Idiots. There's another word he uses, but we can't say it anymore. But in terms of chops, our chops. But thank you for saying the nice things. I don't know, all that kind of stuff happens from necessity is the mother of invention, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So like I was playing with this crazy rock trio in the 80s, and they had some extra pedals laying around, and I was like, I can't. It's like saxophone sounds stupid with these guys because they're just going fucking crazy, and distortion on the bass, and drums, and he had some drum samples, and I was like, I gotta change. I have to change the texture. It's like the timbre, the texture. Gotta, something has to. I can't just play saxophone, like acoustic saxophone. It's not appropriate for the situation. So I just started experimenting with pedals, and luckily I knew someone that was a studio, a producer and an engineer, and he, this guy James Reynolds, and he really helped me teach me about electronics and how to use pedals with a saxophone, because back then in the 80s, there was nothing made for the saxophone or horns. You had to really jump through a lot of hoops to get your signal into a unity gain situation.
Right.
So it was really difficult and expensive. So, and I was really broke then. So I would just kind of borrow stuff from people and experiment constantly. But before that, I had all the records, like King Crimson, like that record, what Thalahan Jinji, it's on Discipline, right?
Uh-huh. Right.
The red record. Yeah. So I fucking love those records. The red, the blue, and the yellow ones,
Yep. Beat and Three of a Perfect Pair.
Yeah. Thank you, brother. So yeah. And it's like, so I had all those sounds in my head, and I loved Adrian Belew, man. Like I saw him live in the 80s. He was touring with his band, the Bears.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah. And dude, his stage presence was just so amazing. Like he was just so humble and yet funny. And then, but when he was digging into the music, it was totally authentic and powerful and totally original. And I was like, oh my God, this is it, like, and that's what I love about Merv,
Mm-hmm.
He's the Adrian Belew of the Bay Area, just, I love his stage presence and his humor. Adrian and Merv, they both put humor in the music and all this originality and this technical, but you aren't like the technical virtuosity part of it isn't taking over and obscuring the music. The music's always first with those guys. It's the same with Bernie Worrell.
Yeah.
They can play anything, but it's the music and the feeling first.
Yeah.
I never knew that Belew was in Zappa till later, till way after I was into all the King Crimson stuff, when I was still naive to like who was who and what was what and where people came from kind of vibe.
Oh yeah.
And I remember seeing Baby Snakes, and I don't think he's in that. I think he's in after. We saw some live in New York where he like played at some theater in New York, Zappa.
Right.
Belew was the lead guitar guy. I don't even think Bosio was in it. I think it was somebody else. And I was like, whoa. And I was with the Victims Family guys. We were like on tour sitting in somebody's living room. I was like, what the fuck? That's Adrian Belew. Whoa. And he's making all the animal sounds and stuff, because Zappa loved that, And I was like, he was in Zappa. And those guys were like, dude, if you're good, you were in Zappa in the 70s or the 80s,
Yeah.
That's where a lot of the people came from, Zappa handpicked those people out of the woodwork where nobody would have ever taken them on because they were so unique, And I'm going to say I agree with Frankie. You're in that vein, it's so unique what you did. The first time I saw you, I was like, oh, look at this dude. He's going to be in Zappa anytime soon,
Wow. Well, I would have loved that. I love the stories of how they rehearsed.
Oh, yeah.
There was the rehearsal meister who would run the rehearsals for the first like 4 or 6 weeks. And then they would have all the music memorized. They have the whole set learned. And then Frank would come in the last 2 or 3 weeks and do little tweaks and everything. It's really cool talking to the guys that used to be in the band.
Right.
And you probably, Scott Tunis. right?
I've never met any of those dudes, the Bay Area cats that are around. Ray White, I think, is the other dude that's in the.
Yeah, I never met Ray.
Ray's around. I never met any of those dudes. Like when Larry and those guys started doing Kaka, Ray White was sitting in with them now and again when they were doing that. But every time I was at a Kaka gig or helping them set it up or it was just the main dude. There was never any crazy guests like that, you know?
Yeah, when I was at the Kaka gig, all that. It's amazing.
I don't know.
But that's funny that you say that because Les took me to a bar one night when we were working in the Bay Area, and Scott was working the door at the fucking bar. And he's like, "Oh, we got to go. Let's go meet Scott," and then Scott was busy at the door, but then after a while he came and sat down with us, and I was just like, wow, I didn't know a lot about him and his role in Zappa, but it was fun talking to him and stuff, but it was such a weird juxtaposition.
He's bass player, right?
Yeah, and he was also one of the rehearsal meisters.
He plays with Kehoe now and again in Kehoe's band.
Oh, cool. Really?
Those guys have hooked up, and he's one of the calls to do a Kehoe gig now and again. I never jammed with him in Kehoe, but I know he's done some bunch of gigs.
Cool. Because you guys were saying Thela Hunginji, that solo that Adrian plays on that record, I think it's him, right? I mean, yeah, it's got to be. It totally is him. So, I always tried to emulate that, and it helped that one of the notes that I use, the bell tones on the tenor saxophone, is a low concert A that I can use my distortion on that has a lot of the pads closed. And that's one of the low notes that I can use with the distortion so it doesn't feed back. So, so I could emulate and get the feeling of some of the things where Adrian was doing in the solo on that song. So we were playing that song for a while, a couple of years. And then once Adrian came and sat in with us in Columbus, Ohio, I don't think you were with us. So, yeah.
I was not. I've never seen Baloo live.
Yeah. So it was early on. And so he came and he was just so funny and awesome. And he sat up right next to me. I think I played the solo on Thela Hunginji like right after him or right before him. And I did my thing, what I thought sounded like Adrian Belew. And he was really after the song, or he was like, "You sound more like me than I do," or awesome. in his joking way,
That's rad.
It was really fun, and we've been friends ever since. It's great. Cool.
Oh,
yeah, it was
I don't know if you remember, Skerik, but you also got to play Sartori in Tangier only once at the first ever Frog Brigade concert back in 2000.
Wow.
Oh, that's when Merv was in the band, huh?
Angels Band Camp, yeah, the premiere of the Frog Brigade.
Merv.
You never did that song again. That's from Beat.
Who was playing drums?
There were two drummers.
It was Tim, right?
Tim and Jack Irons,
yes,
right?
And Jack Irons, that's right.
Wasn't that the
Jack
Angels Camp gig? What's that called up there?
That's Angels Camp, the first ever Frog Brigade concert.
That's because the frog thing was up there. That's why he
Right.
Angels Camp has the frog jumping contest.
Right. That's right.
What's it called? Mountain Air? No.
Yeah, Mountain Air.
Is that right?
Yeah. Fucking 22 years ago, bro.
Well, I will say you must be the first rock saxophonist that I paid attention to, or especially with that Frog Brigade record, that Live Frogs that came out. You said you were trying to figure out how to make those noises or to make those sounds to keep up, I guess, with the bass and drums. I remember thinking, I've never heard anybody play saxophone like this. I was in jazz band in high school and marching band doing percussion and such, and the saxophones, of course, never sounded that cool. So when that first, when your first solo hit, I thought, holy crap, saxophone's cool now. And I really had to dig in, and find more of your records. And, of course, you're playing with all these names that I know now, like Charlie Hunter, of course, Mike Dillon, and so on. Like, the list goes on. You found that to be a necessity. to what do you trace that back to your influences, if at all, as far as what music was playing when you were a kid, and what was there anything that was pushing you in that direction, do you think?
Oh yeah, I was really lucky when I was a kid in some ways, and in terms of being exposed to music, and very unlucky in other ways. So I was very lucky because my neighbor, who was a grade younger than me, is like one of my best friends. He had the best musical taste of anyone, even to this day. Like he had cassettes of everything. So this is when we were kids in the 70s, and he had all this Hendrix stuff. He had Zeppelin, you know, all this cool shit. And I just, you know, he was constantly playing us all this shit. And I was like, wow, what the fuck is this? You know? And then my dad was a huge jazz fan. So he was taking me to concerts all the time and
That's rad.
checking shit out, you know.
Did you get to see Miles?
I saw Miles many times. Yeah.
How lucky. I never got to see Miles.
And I got to see him in like 82 or something with that, when he came right out of not retirement, but you know, he was out for like 6 years or something. And it was that band with Bill Evans and Schofield and Mike Stern, or I think, and you know, and that was like, I mean, it doesn't really matter. Every time I saw him throughout the 80s, you know, until he died, it was just always an event, you know, because of the way that he runs the show, the way he's on the stage, and the way he's leading the band. And it's just always engrossing, you know, and just there's so many lessons going on there. And he always hires amazing stuff, even though things can get cheesy in the 80s for everybody, you know. Mm-hmm. It's like it was still offset by the fact that there was such incredible players in the band. I think when we're on tour with Claypool, you might have been with us, and like Arrested Development, or someone was playing a festival we were at, and Foley was in one of the bands. I think that's when Fish. Were you with us when Fish Fisher was drums?
No, I missed all that too.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you weren't there.
I've come and gone so many times. I miss a lot of stuff, and then I see a lot of stuff, other stuff.
Yeah, totally. And Fish, you know, I was like, Fish, man, you got to introduce me to Foley. And he was like, yeah, no problem, let's go. And we were hanging out with him on his bus, and you know, he was playing drums on that tour, but or guitar or something like. But you know, with Miles, he had that adapted 4-string bass or something that sounded like a guitar. It was so weird. It's really interesting musicians, you know, that he always had, you know.
So you're pretty drawn to innovators, it sounds like.
I don't know. I guess I love all kinds of music. I listen to anything, but I was definitely interested in playing with Les, you know, when his manager was talking to me, you know. Luckily I had the gig with Roger Waters right before that. So I think that made it interesting for Les. It's like, okay, I'll try this guy out. Skerik guy.
Yeah.
Because I did the Roger Waters gig. I think that made him feel a little more comfortable. But, you know, I feel like we all got along really well right off the beginning, you know, especially like Merv and stuff, you know. It was it was great, super fun.
And you had known, you mentioned in the book, the Grapevine book, that you had known Tim Alexander, that is, way back as far as like 1990, running up and down the West Coast with your band, right?
Yeah, that's that band I was talking about earlier that I've started experimenting with pedals with, was that band Sad Happy. Uh-huh. And it had this virtuoso bass player in it that could play like Bach violin concertos on a Fender P bass, and you know, and fucking distortion, and just, it was like lead, you know, setting up bass lines on this looper and then playing this incredible lead shit. So I was kind of like I would just back him up essentially, but on the saxophone. It was really weird. And so Tim Alexander came to one of our shows. And he was like, whoa. And because we did a cover of Tommy the Cat, I think.
Oh, wow.
And he was like, and he was just kind of like, who the fuck are these guys? You know, so he came and talked to us, and that was real exciting for us. It was like, oh, wow, you know, guys from Primus, you know, like I didn't know a lot about Primus, but I knew they were really good and different and interesting. And so we kind of stayed friends with Tim, and he invited us to the Primus show in Seattle when they were opening up for Rush.
Nice.
And so we reconnected with him there. And yeah, it was fucking hilarious, man. Were you with them on that tour, Soya?
No, I was doing Victim's Family during the Roll the Bones tour, but I did see it a few times, actually.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I loved it. They started going into Kashmir or something.
Yeah.
And before that, I think, yeah, right, on the upright. And Les goes on the mic. He's like, you're probably all wondering, who are these bastards? I paid good money to see Rush, and who are these bastards playing right now? You know, it was awesome. It was really funny. So we saw that, but I wasn't I've never been a big Rush fan, so I think I kind of bailed after they played. But and I always give less shit we always argue about Rush, or not argue, but you know, oh, the trees are fighting the soil or whatever, you know. I'm always making fun of him and him liking Rush.
Oh man, that's awesome.
But
well, I will tell you that moment, that tour they did, that was some pretty cheesy Rush going on. I mean,
oh really? Yeah.
There wasn't much like rip and Rush after Signals is the last one I thought was great. I saw Grace Under Pressure, and then I saw Power Windows, but they were pretty pop driven at that point, you know, a lot of keyboards and shit. And then after that, they lost me big time after that. Neil Peart rapping and Getty's roll the bones, oh, roll the bones, roll the bones. Like, yeah, God.
Oh, yeah, Neil was rapping, huh? Nice.
Oh, yeah. I love those guys. I'm a huge Rush fan with the old stuff, but I don't know.
Yeah, they definitely have some ripping stuff back in the day.
Skerik, speaking of Tim Alexander, what can you tell us about Sound Cipher?
Oh, I have so many questions about Sound Cipher.
Oh, yeah. The record is fucking finally done. And so it's at the record pressing plant in New Orleans right now. But, you know, everything's backed up like 6 to 12 months on vinyl manufacturing. So we're just waiting. But the artwork got done and the mastering, because we had a record that was done a few years ago, but then we went back in the studio and we're like, oh man, we got to record this new shit. And so we ran in and recorded again. So it's a really expensive record. But Royal Potato Family is going to distribute it when it comes out, hopefully by Christmas this year.
Oh, very good. So you have a target date. Excellent.
We can't control that date at all, so don't quote me on it, but we're hoping that. And yeah, if you're a Tim Alexander fan, oh my God. The drums on this record are insane. I mean, it's just like, it's ridiculous. And Randall Dunn, the producer, he's putting them through fucking, you know, vintage Mini Moog Model Ds and, you know, filter shit and stereo. It's just super powerful and really crazy. It's like a lot of modular synth and stuff, and then really processed sax and just crazy acoustic drums.
Oh, nice. How was it working with Tim? Because it's just the two of you, right? In Sound Cipher, is that correct?
No. Well, that's how it started.
Okay.
And then Tim Mason from Master Musicians of Bukkake, he showed up at our first recording session. I thought he was just going to be in the control room processing what Tim and I did live. And but when I came to the studio, he was set up in the studio. And so I was like, oh, what's going on? You know, I was like, okay, cool. You know, just kind of went with it. And so he was feeding me this time code information into some synths that I had, like a Juno 106 and this other shit. And so I would play harmonic ideas generated but with tempos and arpeggiation, kind of like information from Tim Mason. And then Tim Alexander and I would improvise over that. So
wow.
It's always been kind of an electronic thing, because Tim Alexander was super into electronics at the time too. He was doing solo shows with
right.
A lot of program stuff. This is all when he was living in Bellingham, Washington, up near Seattle. So
right.
We were all in the Seattle area. Now those two guys have moved away. So, which is every fucking band I get in, people move away. And then it's like, okay, we can't do a gig unless it's going to be like $1,000 in airfare for everyone. You know, it's really frustrating, but that's what I get for living in Seattle. No one wants to stay here. Fucking outpost. So, but man, yeah, super great playing with Tim Alexander in that band for sure.
Yeah.
Kill.
Oh, looking forward to
Skerik.
that record for sure.
I want to ask you another question. And yes, I'm also truly looking forward to that record. My next question is, well, you have been an essential part of several Les Claypool projects, but you have also done some pretty interesting sit-ins during shows. Let me share with you a particular experience that I had. I never caught the Frog Brigade live, but I did attend the Silver Anniversary Extravaganza in Oakland. And the first part of the set was Duo the Twank. And I had my fingers crossed.
First part of the set was what?
Duo the Twank.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I had my fingers crossed all during the entire queue that they would perform Buzzards of Green Hill, because that's one of my favorite Les Claypool songs ever.
Yeah, that's a killer one.
Yeah, and it was amazing for me when you came on stage and you played saxophone with those guys on that track, which was completely rare because, you know, during the tour, it was just the two of them. And on this particular night, we got to see you play saxophone on the song, just like on the record. And it was a really, really memorable experience.
Oh, good.
In your case, do you have any particular memory of a sit-in that was memorable for you or that you could recall as your favorite?
I don't really remember any favorites, but I remember, like one of the first times I sat in with Primus, I was like super excited. I was like, wow, you know, I was really surprised that they were into letting it happen, you know, in the first place, you know, so I was just really excited to do that. And then, you know, playing with Bucket of Bernie Brains too, that was really exciting for me because those are some of my favorite, you know, Brain's one of my favorite drummers of all time for sure. And Buckethead, love Buckethead too, just totally one of my favorite guitar players. And I was a huge Deli Creeps fan, and
nice,
you know, so just getting to hang out with Bucket and everything, that's just so great. And you know, it's great meeting Larry and Tim and, you know, Jay Lane. And yeah, it's just it's epic, you know. Anytime I'm around any of those people, it's just really inspiring and exciting. And I still don't understand how all this shit has happened to me. You know, I really have no idea. You know, like I just came from a gig in the Virgin Islands playing with George Porter Jr. from the Meters. You know, like
wow,
how did that? Sometimes it's like, is this a dream? You know, is this happening? So I don't really have like any favorite times, but I'm glad that there are times that happened.
Yeah.
All of them.
Josh, I believe epic is a valid term for this situation, right?
Frankie uses that word a lot. He tosses it around as though it were a commonplace experience, but I would go with epic here, yes.
Yeah, always epic.
Yeah.
Fucking epic.
Well, when you get on stage, you know, you've no matter who it is, you know, you're pretty outspoken about that thesis. You kind of mentioned it earlier about conversation, spontaneity, and live music supersedes technique as far as being able to communicate ideas, and it seems to fit perfectly with what the Les was trying to do in the Frog Brigade when he first started it out. Although I did find it somewhat amusing in the book that you said you were trying to get out of that world, and that's exactly where Les was going, kind of back into that jam scene. So, but when you
Yeah.
now we know there was a different lineup for that first Frog Brigade show or shows, and then for recording what became the live Frog set 1 and 2, you had quite a group with you. We talked with Todd Huth, we talked with Enor. They both said they were pretty nervous and didn't want to screw things up. Jeff Commenti's a total pro. Les and Jay are like this, cosmically linked for the people at home. This is that signal. So how comfortable were you stepping in, having already played a little bit with those guys, to rehearse and jam with a big band like that, knowing that Tim Soya was setting up the stage for you guys on that night?
Oh man, I was totally into. I mean, I had, you got to remember, I had a lot less responsibility than those guys.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a lot of music that the guitars had to learn, and the drums and keys, and that, of course, it's Commenti is a total genius, and he makes everything look easy. So it's completely unfair for mortals to be on stage with him, and Les is really good about learning shit. He always has everything on lock too. He just never makes any mistakes or anything. So, but for me, for those early years, Les just liked the texture of what I was doing, so I had a lot of just solos to do. Mm-hmm. So I could just be myself and just play the moment, and, whatever I was feeling at the time, whatever was going on, I could just blast off like that. So, it was pretty easy. It was later on, there was stuff. Then he started writing with us in mind, like Mike D and Gabby Lala and I, started, I was taking on a lot more responsibility in terms of the music, in terms of, learning melodies and parts and everything. So it changed a lot. But in those early times, yeah, it was like super easy for me to and just blast off and just be a total asshole through the saxophone. Yeah,
I don't remember you playing more than a few songs at those Frog Live sets.
Exactly. I was standing around a lot. That's why I would play so much before and after the show. I'd be busking,
right.
Playing a bunch of jazz ballads.
Yeah, it's funny you say about the other guys having it hard. I remember those nights. Those were the first full sets I think I saw. You guys did Animals, the Pink Floyd side.
Oh yeah.
Right.
There's great saxophone all over those.
Yeah. But I remember that was the first time I saw Enor do the Thela Hunjinji. I was like, God damn, he had to learn that shit. And he was ripping it, that big guitar intro,
Yeah.
I was like, holy shit, man. I'm glad I don't have to play that song. Holy fuck,
Yeah. Yeah, there was a lot asked of people for sure in some of those covers,
Yeah. How was it for you as the band gained some steam and momentum and you started touring all over the place? Was for you, was that a bigger break, and did it eventually lead to more things for you, or was it because we're talking a number of years in the past now, or was it just another part of the long ride you've been on?
I mean, I was really doing that full time from 2000 to 2007, I think. It was a lot of stuff, but I was also playing with Critters Buggin'.
Yep.
I was also playing with Garage à Trois, and started touring with Mike Clark and that Prescription Renewal Band with Charlie Hunter, DJ Logic, Fred Wesley, and Robert Walter. So, that was awesome. Me, touring with Fred Wesley, the James Brown's trombonist, for 2 years. I mean,
wow.
It was like, that was just unbelievable, because he's like one of the greatest horn sections of all time, him and Pee Wee Ellis and Maceo Parker, JBs, and they did Parliament Funkadelic and, James Brown and Maceo's band. I mean, it was just incredible. So, there was a lot of shit going on all that time during Les, and it just kind of kept going since then,
Yeah. Do you ever play, as an aside, 6 Degrees of Skerik, just to see if you can hit every musician? that's ever played anything? Because it sounds like it could.
Oh, Jesus. I don't know.
I think your recall for names is really impressive. And that's coming from a guy who's got to remember, 60 10-year-olds' names, at the start of every September.
When I need my memory, I look to the bass player in Critter's Bug and Brad Hauser. He's got there's certain friends of yours that have really good memories. I definitely don't have one.
Frankie, I saw your hand politely raised.
Oh, here's Mike D. He's texting me right now.
Oh, what's up, Mike D?
Speaking of punk rock.
There you go.
Skerik, can you please tell us about your experience performing at the first ever Chocolate Factory show?
Oh, yeah.
The what factory?
The Chocolate Factory, New Year's Eve 2013. Before they recorded the album, you were part of the Fungi ensemble.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man, that was fun. I remember we were rehearsing for that at Prairie Sun. Were you there, Soya?
I built that fucking drum kit, dude.
Yeah.
Of course I was there.
That's right.
God, it got bigger every fucking hour, remember?
Yeah,
so and I was like, oh God, the only bummer about this is I know if this show goes good, I got to bring this fucking thing on tour. And sure enough. Good Lord.
Yeah. So, well, that was fun. I came across a bunch of sheet music that I had written for that, like a few weeks ago, because I was looking for some other music. I was like, oh shit. But yeah, I couldn't do the tour because my other band, Omaha Diner, with Charlie Hunter, we had a record release party. And we just gotten this new booking agent. We had to go all over the US, and do Europe. So it was really fucked up because I lost out on like 2 or 3 years of touring for one 3-week tour.
Are you on the Wonka record, Skerik? I don't even know.
No, he's not.
No.
I only set up that session and then those guys did it with just less.
Yeah, I did a bunch of, I'm on all like the rough stuff. I think they were recording at Prairie Sun, maybe just 2-track or something,
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think we were doing rehearsals and we had to break from rehearsals sporadically on Les's call. And I had to move that drum kit up to his house and set it up at his house. And they did basic tracks for a bunch of it. Oh, and then we had to go back to Prairie Sun and continue rehearsing for the show. I had to set it back up down there. And then it was like, okay, now that's done. Let's get it to the Fox Theater and do that show. I was like, fucking hell. A lot of it didn't make it. Like it was breaking as Tim was playing it and I kept moving.
Oh, no.
Because it was all just, old Frog Brigade rusty shit that was in Les's barn in cases. I was finding anything that Tim could hit that was not, traditional musician or drum parts,
Yeah, that's when Sound Cipher was born too, because Tim Alexander and I were fucking around at Sound Check because he had that huge drum kit that Soya was putting together, and he had all these awesome sound. He was doing all this super cool shit, and we were just having fun, jamming with all those different sounds. And I was like, dude, we got to record. He's like, yeah, let's do it. So that's how that happened. So that was good.
Oh, that's rad that was born at that moment and it's finally coming to fruition,
Yeah, man. Yeah. Super exciting.
That was like 20 years ago, wasn't it? The Wonka tour? I can't even remember.
That was the first night, but the tour was between 2014 and 2015.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking
yeah, so 2013.
Jesus.
Yeah. Shit, dude.
So, Skerik, when you say rough stuff, do you mean that prior to the release of the album, there were demo recordings that feature you on the tracks?
I don't know. I think he might have just been recording the rehearsals because he was trying to arrange and write the stuff, and I was helping him trying to find places for the saxophone in the music I mean, I definitely wouldn't call them demos,
Okay.
It might just be very informal rehearsal recordings,
But now, hold on, just so I get my head back around that night. Frankie, you would know who was in the band that night in the Wonka band. It was, I know Mike Dillon was there, but
Yeah.
Skerik, were you on the whole set, or did you just play some of it? I can't remember.
Yeah, I might have just played some of it. Wasn't there the cello? Wasn't there another cello player?
But it wasn't Teddy, wasn't it?
It was Mike Dillon and Skerik.
Sam
Bass, right?
Sam Bass, yeah.
Sam Bass. And then Sam Bass couldn't do the tour, and so that's when Teddy Rankin got the gig.
Yeah.
Yes, Skerik was on from Hello Wonkites up until the end of the album, or the songs from Chocolate Factory, and I think you were also present for the encore, right, Skerik?
I would think so.
The encore?
Yeah, because after the album they played Here Come the Bastards, Southbound Pachyderm. You might have been on one of those, right?
Yeah, he usually has me sit on one of those two songs, if not both.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that became the pattern for the tour as well, for the ensemble to stay on for the encore, and everybody got a turn.
Oh, and Duchess as well.
Oh, definitely everybody got a turn on Duchess.
Duchess is awesome, man.
Yeah.
That's some shit. Love that.
Skerik, what was it like for you performing in the fancy band?
Fancy band. I like it because Les's vision of his solo project was getting more refined all the time.
Mm-hmm.
From 2000 to whenever, till today, he really was getting it honed in, so I really liked the directions he was going. I like that he didn't give a fuck. Like, I don't need guitar. I can have this electric sitar player play, And Gabby is just so awesome. She's an incredible musician. So it's, I like that he was, and I can have a percussionist and a saxophone and electric sitar. Just that mindset is really cool. So I don't remember the exact personnel of all the iterations of his bands, but I liked where the direction it was going. It was always going in a good place. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that fancy band lineup of you, Mike, Gabby, and Paolo with Les, really, I think that was a lot of people's favorites. When we talked to Gabby quite a while back now, she called it a disciplined band. Do you agree? I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it was very, everything was very written out, Mm-hmm. There was a lot of parts and a lot of songs, that we had to have ready to play at any time, because the catalog was really growing by then.
Mm-hmm.
He had several records of solo material by that time, whereas in early days, he was doing a lot of covers
mm-hmm.
to make up for the fact that he didn't have maybe as much solo stuff. So, we really had to have our shit together, and it was difficult for me because I'd be really busy to keep up. I can't learn songs in the van, for instance, not like a drummer can,
Mm-hmm.
By just listening to it. I have to have the saxophone out. So if someone, he would be sending me a song, or learn this tune, and it has guitar on it. So I have to transcribe it and then see what notes and what range it can fit on the saxophone. So, for instance, when I remember the first time he was having me learn John the Fisherman and some Primus tunes, and I couldn't figure out what Lur was doing on some of these guitar parts. And so I was on YouTube. I figured out that if I saw versions of the video game, what was that video game? Guitar Hero or something like that? If I watched one of those video games, I would look for the video games where 100, perfect score.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
John the Fisherman. And so I would watch that, and I could watch the notes on the fretboard.
That's awesome. That ruled, actually.
Isn't it fucked up?
No way.
That's modern living, right?
Incredible, man.
So I got really lucky, so I could figure out the notes. And so I would just write down all the notes on the fretboard from the video guy, some kid that won, the kid got a perfect score in the game. And then I could transcribe the music. But, it takes hours,
Yeah.
I'm not playing the same instrument as these songs that someone's asking me to learn. It's like, I have to reinvent how these things are played, and with effects and stuff. It's like a whole process. So I'd be on tour for like 3 weeks or 4 weeks. Like, here, learn these tunes. I was like, I can't do it in the van. It's like, because I can't have the saxophone out in the van too. Like, you hit a pothole or something. I'm gonna break. I'm gonna break a fucking tooth, man. So it's like, why didn't you learn these songs? Everyone else did. It's like, because everyone else plays those instruments. Like, they can fucking listen to the. So
we heard a similar experience from Mike Dillon, Skerik, because in the Fungi band, there was no guitar player, there was no sitar either. So when they were doing Telehon Gingit, he had to play the intro riff on the percussion, and he told us that it was really daunting.
Yeah, and I mean, Mike's a great musician, so he can figure it out. But we need to be with our instruments, that not in a van. You can't set the vibes up in the fucking van,
Right? Yeah, it gets a little tight in there when you do, right?
When you don't, it's not even gonna happen in a pretend humor world.
Yeah, right. Well, speaking of Mike, I mean, you guys have played in 36 different bands together throughout the years. So what's that musical relationship between like you and Mike, or maybe even you and Charlie Hunter? Because you guys have been in a lot of projects together, and you're speaking that language. So, I mean, how are you relating to a guy like Mike throughout the different projects? And I know it's kind of hard to put words to that, but what is that unspoken bond like?
I don't know. I mean, it's pretty easy when, it's just like if you have enough in common to play with someone initially, then there's no reason why that would ever change, for years. You just ride, you have that similar way of hearing music or similar concepts of improvisation or playing, similar tastes in music, or you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's what, so we can just all of us can just ride on our shared, similarities and kind of riff and grow on that kind of stuff. So, Mike Dillon and Stanton Moore and we've been playing with each other for over, fucking 25 years. Right. So when Les says, he wants the three of us to back him up with Bastard Jazz, it's just like, it's so fucking easy for us, mm-hmm. It's just like, boom, like, oh, where's the gig? That's all we need to know. What the fucking time do I have to be there?
That's when you get to call Claypool out. Go, come on, dude, keep up, bro.
Yeah. No, and Les is he's a great improviser, and so it's fucking easy, man. Like, oh my God, and Stanton's just, he has the rock power that I need. That ignite, I'm just like, I just immediately just go into overdrive when he starts beating the shit out of the drums.
Yeah.
And then Mike D is just doing whatever the fuck he's doing back there, just going crazy. So it's really easy. We just fucking party. Good time.
Skerik, we have our own lingo in this podcast, and one of our favorites is jam vehicle. Would you say that Bastard Jazz is more interesting for you in terms of improvising and exploring because of the structure of the shows, because you're not doing like a typical set list? Or is it similar to your experience with Frog Brigade, for instance? Well,
it's very challenging, if think about it too much, it kind of freak you out because it's all improvised. So, I just have to be ready. We have to be completely ready. Your shit all has to be working. Your brain has to be ready to, you're listening to everything, it's hyper focus. And luckily I have this psychological disorder. Let's see, what is it called again? I gotta look
sax
it up.
player.
Yeah, you play this dumb, outdated instrument. It's like I have ADD hyperfocus.
Oh, okay.
So it's different than playing music that you've rehearsed and songs you've written, because you can kind of fall back on that stuff. Part of your brain can just relax a little bit, but bastard jazz, like you're on all the like incoming. There's you can't break. There's no time off. The whole time it's just like beep 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 beep. It's just an alarm, fire alarm is going on the whole fucking time. Yeah. So of course it's worth $30 admission or however much it is. Like you could see 4 people just panicking in a fire alarm. Someone pulled a fire alarm for 90 minutes. It's like, it's a fucking thing. It's definitely intense.
Yeah.
It was really fun at Jazz Fest, the most recent one,
It sounds like that relationship you have with Stanton and Mike, as you said, it really helps because you guys have that unspoken language, and you probably can anticipate what either of those guys are actually, and Les too. I think you can all anticipate what the other guy's going to do and lead you into the next section or to another place. So even though you're working without a net, as they say, Is it a case where you kind of feel that you panic ever, or your receptors are always on, and it's got to be exhausting? But I'd imagine you feel like you can fall back on just your instincts at that point.
No, because that's dangerously close to assumption. And it's like what we're doing is like military. So like in the Marines, they teach you, assume, like, don't make an ass out of you and me.
Right.
Never assume anything. So there's a lot of military strategy that can be used in improvising. Except we're healing people instead of killing them.
And that's the more noble purpose for sure. And so I appreciate that. But that insight,
or the more masturbatory. I'm not sure.
Depends on which jam vehicle show you're at.
Don't use the fucking J word around me, please.
Man, don't get me started on the J word.
That's what I like. Like John Medeski always said, jam band describes audience more than the music,
Oh,
right.
Funny. And probably
because so like what the fuck does, like a bluegrass band doesn't have anything to do with what Les does, Can they play together? Yes. Mm-hmm. But, come on, there's no jam music. It's not a genre, Mm-hmm. There's another good Medeski quote too. What is it? Hardening of the categories leads to art disease.
Oh, wow. That's great.
That's amazing.
I like that one. So, fuck all that shit. Yeah. Just alphabetize that shit, bro. Victim's family. B. It's right fucking after Van Halen.
Right on. There's no boundaries in that shit. You just do whatever the hell you want to do. Not really jamming because we actually play it the exact same way every time, but there's no boundaries.
There you go.
Yeah. And I think that's important for, of course, keeping your eyes open and finding all those paths. And you definitely have trod a lot of paths, Skerik, through your music. And, I got a stack of CDs with your name on them, somewhere on them.
Me too.
But I'm missing a whole other stack that's probably 3 times as tall. So I got to do more research, especially when that Sound Cipher comes out. I wanted to ask and follow up on Bastard Jazz. It seemed to be an annual one-off thing, but now we have all these summer dates. So it really seems like this project is heating up. And I'm curious if there are any further plans that you know about to carry it forward.
Well, I mean, he definitely always knows what he wants to do. He doesn't really consult us or, he's definitely the captain of the ship and the owner of the ship. So it's a dual role. So, he's really good at balancing out his year, so to speak, and planning what a band is going to do, what a band has done, what a band should do. So he knows exactly how much to do a band and then go and do the other band. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So he's kind of a master of, like we'd be on tour with the Frog Brigade and he has all these notebooks in the road cases. So he can look up before the show what songs he played the last time we were in that city, whether it's Pittsburgh or LA or, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
And so he wants to give people like a different set, and, even if we haven't been there for a year, so he is really good at planning all that stuff out, and planning a set list out, planning a tour, planning as his year. It's all part of the, kind of ability to really see highly organized. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yes.
So
definitely.
Only he knows what's going to happen next. But, it's always a blast for me, and, we're friends. So I hope it keeps going. I'm totally down. I'm always down for that shit.
Yeah. The last thing I have, I'd like to close with my Skerik moment. This happened, I want to say 2002 or 2003 in Iowa City. And I don't remember what label you were with at the time. Couldn't tell you, but it was a record label tour. And you guys stopped in Iowa City. And
Rope-a-Dope.
It was Rope-a-Dope, thank you, yes.
Rope-a-Dope tour, man.
The Rope-a-Dope tour. I remember there weren't that many people in the crowd in this campus location in Iowa City. And so I just strolled in and went right up to the front middle, and was just enjoying it and bopping around. And your turn came, and I was just doing my thing and bouncing along, and you just came up right to the front of the stage and put that saxophone right in my face and blew me out of the water, man. And it was awesome. And I was in your camp from that moment on. So I was a huge fan after that. That was a golden moment for me, one I'll never forget.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, that was a super fun tour. 2 tour buses. There was like Lyrics Born.
Yes, that's
Ground Truther with DJ Olive, Bobby Previtt, and Charlie Hunter.
Charlie, yeah.
And Critters Buggin' was on that tour. The duo, Joe Russo and Marco Benevento. And Sex Mob.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
That shit, you can't do that shit today. Come on. You'd have to, Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, they'd have to put their money together just to pull that shit off. I can't even imagine, so I'm so glad we did that back then. It was so fucking fun, so.
Yeah, that was a great night.
See that.
Skerik, well, first, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. It was really amazing to hear from you. And my last question is not directly related to Les Claypool, but I'm curious if you like David Sanborn's playing.
What?
You see, he didn't ask me about Pharoah Sanders or Daniel Carter or
Clarence Clemens.
Didn't Journey? Who's the sax player in Journey?
They never had one.
See?
It was
That's
bad
what I'm
enough
going
they
up against.
They had Jonathan Cain. That was bad enough,
No, David Sanborn, he had his own style. Like, he created his own style. Like, that is for sure. Was he sailing the seas of cheese? Hell yeah, he was. And he was the sea of cheese. He was getting paid up the butt. So that seemed to be important to him. But, you know, he came from like R&B and soul and funk shit. Like he's on that first Jaco Pastorius record. And, you know, he was a New York session guy who was he played with a lot of really cool people, and he did a lot of stuff. It was very influential. I mean, it's not the style for me, but you know, he's incredible at what he does. It's amazing. In terms of alto sax, I'm much more into Charlie Parker, Kenny Garrett, Cannonball Adderley, Godwin Lewis, and, you know, people like that, and Maceo Parker. But, you know, David Sanborn, he does play on the Ween song, The Party.
Oh, is that him? I didn't realize that.
It's fucking hilarious.
It's an awesome track.
Some of the best lyrics of all time. And that was the song I requested from, like, when I played with Ween. They asked me, well, what song do you want to do? And I go, come on, dude, The Party.
Yeah.
But then I started panicking when I was on stage with them because I was like, oh, how am I supposed to play this? Am I supposed to play it like all cheesy, like David Sanborn, or am I supposed to play it like me, or play it like a character? So I was totally confused, and I was panicking. It was terrible.
Skerik, thank you so much. This was really amazing.
Yeah. Thanks
all
a lot,
right,
Skerik.
thank you guys. I hope you can monetize the fuck out of this, right, Soya? Someone's got to make some money.
Man, you're lucky, man. You're out there playing with 500 bands. I got nothing, man. 2 VF gigs a year these days, man.
Oh, dude. Okay, well, I'll get bigger and hire you, dude. We'll have a blast.
There we go.
Like Dylan's been promising I'll be in his band someday, but that's been going on for almost 20 years now.
Oh, shit. Well, fuck, you got to bump yourself up on that list. You better text him right now. Let's both text him.
There, that's the deal. Skerik, Soya, and Dylan, I'm in.